Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. Before I start our conversation, if you would like to support the podcast, please go to convome.com/support. There, you'll be able to buy me a coffee or two, or become a monthly supporter for additional perks. Again, that's convome.com/support. And now, on to the episode. My guest this week is Kat Hutchings. Kat has been selling on Etsy since 2010, so lots to talk about there. Kat runs two Etsy shops, Spotlight Jewelry and Moonlight Supplies, and combined she has over 100,000 sales on Etsy. That's a big deal. She's also a top 1% seller on Etsy, and she has recently begun offering coaching. And if you're struggling with your Etsy sales, after you hear this conversation with Kat, feel free to reach out to her for some help. Kat, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Ijama, I am so excited. I can't even tell you. This is, everyone, the first podcast I have ever done as a guest. Ijama reached out to me and I was just elated because I have followed her podcast for years and years and years. So this is a real treat for me.
Well, I'm so glad to have you on. And as you know, I found you on YouTube, which for me has become a nice, what you call it? I don't want to say trolling ground, hunting ground for guests. Hunting ground. That's much better than trolling. Trolls aren't nice. And your videos just really caught my attention. And one in particular, which was one of the reasons I just knew I wanted to have you on, was because the message I got from you was just how much you wanted to help other Etsy sellers, how much you wanted to help other people grow their businesses. And not just because you've been doing it for a while, but because you are literally an Etsy made millionaire, which I meant to say in the beginning, but I'm saying it now. You have made over $1 million on Etsy. And sometimes we think that when people reach that number or hit that mark, they become unrelatable, and, then the rest of us are still trying to figure out, well, how do I accomplish that? But on your YouTube channel, you're sharing how you do that or how you've done that. And so I thought, I want her on the podcast because I want her to share with my audience too how she's done that. So we're just going to start from the beginning. First of all, congratulations on accomplishing that, Kat. I should stop and say that first.
Thank you so much, Ijama. It's one of those things when you're saying it out loud, talking about it, you know how we're all weird about money sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been doing this for over a decade now. And that's why, and we'll get to so many good things. You guys are in for such a treat today, because I just know how great Ijama is at talking to Etsy sellers and pulling out those little nuggets. I could tell you many stories of things that I've implemented in my own business from her and her guests and the sellers that she's brought on. So I'm super excited to be here, and I just continue to share some of that information with other Etsy sellers, because I remember what it was like. It was so long ago, starting from zero with Etsy, but now, like, with this coaching thing and, the YouTube channel, it's like, this is all zero for me. Like, starting that YouTube channel, it's such a reminder of what it's like to not have everything rolling and going and knowing exactly what you're doing. And it becomes kind of like almost like muscle memory. Whereas, like, now starting this YouTube channel and the coaching, it's like, gosh, there's so many things. So I love that I'm in a place where I can help other Etsy sellers in their Etsy shops who are kind of feeling some of those struggles to learn and grow. And I'm just a lifelong learner too, so I love it. I talk Etsy all day, every day. So
well, good. So, Kat, what were the early days like for you, if you can remember back to then? what was it like when you first started selling on Etsy? What were your struggles then, and what are your struggles now?
Oh, such a good question. I don't know if people can totally tell. I'm like just smiling so big
I
thinking
am
back
too.
because people, you always see where someone's at and think like, what on earth? Like you don't see the millions of steps. So back in 2010, I was early 20s. I was still going to college. And this is so funny. I think it's an important part of just my personal journey though. So I'll share it real quick. But I I was I was raised by a stay-at-home mom and I love my
Mm,
mom. We have a great relationship, but that was kind of put on me as like this is the best option. As if you can't be a stay-at-home mom, that's fine, you make it work, but ideally this is kind of what you're working towards. And it
mm-hmm.
might be so, some people listening to this may be like, what, are you serious? Like this is like 2020, what is she talking about? But I'm like, no, like this was legit. And there is nothing wrong. Like I have friends that are full-time stay-at-home moms. It is
Mm-hmm.
amazing, it's incredible. If that's what you
Mm-hmm.
love, like do it. If it brings you joy and passion, it's perfect, amazing.
Yeah.
All about that. But for me, I went off to college, and so I had that mindset like, okay, I'm just, if I was going to be a broadcast journalist, and I was like, well, if I don't get married, that's what I'm going to do. But if I do, then we'll do the stay-at-home mom thing. So
Mm.
ended up, going to college, got engaged to this super, super hunky man. And so as since we got engaged, he was a business major. I'm like, I can't make this stuff up. I'm serious, guys. Like again, I look back and I'm like, who was that girl? Like I love her, but it's just like I've just changed and evolved in so many beautiful ways. So I got engaged to this awesome guy, and he was a business major. And I seriously, I was like, you know what? If he ever wants to start a business, it might be kind of fun to have some business knowledge. So maybe I can like keep his books or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I took an entrepreneurship class. And in that class, we had to do a business plan. And it's like, well, it might as well, if I'm going to put all this work in for this grade, maybe it could be something I actually do someday. And so I wanted something that was just kind of like a really low startup cost. Again, we were just starving college kids, like super frugal. And I was like, oh, maybe I could make jewelry. And so just doing the research, buying like super cheap beads on eBay, going to YouTube, figuring out how to put them together. Like,
Is that
so I just
really
kind
how
of,
you learned?
yes, Ijama,
No
I'm telling
way.
you, like I look back and I'm like, I can't make this stuff up. So anyways, my sister-in-law found out and she was like, you should sell on Etsy. And I was like, what's Etsy? Like Etsy, I think, do you know how long has Etsy been around?
I think since 2008.
Yeah, right. So again, this is like, so I started in 2010. So
Mm.
Etsy was totally new to the scene too. So I was
Mm.
like, you know what, whatever, I'll take some pictures. I listed it. And now fast forward, here we are 12 years later. I've got 5 amazing women that work for me. I run 2 Etsy shops. You said, the whole spiel, like
Mm-hmm.
done over 100,000 sales on the platform. I love it. I get to set my own schedule. It's like such a beautiful thing that evolved from almost kind of like nothing. Like I wish I
Mm.
could go back because I had to fix so many things, because the idea of it becoming like a business with employees and a
Yeah.
full-time income, it's like that was not even on my radar at all, like at all. And it just slowly, it's like the first year solopreneur, like barely, I think I went back, I look at my Etsy stats, I want to say I made like $500 that first year, which again is amazing. Yeah, I was super happy with that. I was like doing backflips, like that was awesome.
Yeah.
So it just continued. Like I just kept plugging away. And I got so enamored with just watching. It was almost became like my babies. And again, 12 years later, babies did come along. I ended up marrying that hunky man. We're still married. It's great. But
Yeah.
like Etsy, I just loved continually learning, like, how can I grow? How can I do better? How can I do better? And I just kept at it and kept at it until now it's at the point where it's like those wheels, it's kind of like a nice oiled machine where it's like there's systems, there's processes, I have teammates, but the everything in between there, it was literally like hiring my first employee. That was huge. That was like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I ever going to do this? It was mind blowing. And then I did it, and then I did it again, and I did it, and it keeps getting better every time, to the point now, like I'm super proud, but I graduated And all of the women that I worked with, they used to be independent contractors, and now they're like actually on W-2s and they have paid time off, and it's super like that's a
Wow.
really big deal
So
to me,
you're running an
sometimes.
organization.
Yeah, and I am still like I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what is possible. But I think that's the big thing that comes from me, doing the YouTube channel and
Mm-hmm.
trying to help other Etsy sellers, because you don't know what you don't know until
Yeah.
you see what is possible. It's like I wish if I would have had that person, I'm like I feel like I would have been 10 times further ahead than I even am now, but I had no one. I didn't know anyone making a full-time living selling on Etsy.
Yeah. So, Kat, let's break it down. So, first of all, you have two shops, Spotlight
Yeah.
Jewelry and Moonlight Supplies. And I think the
Yes.
names are self explanatory, but more specifically, can you tell us what you sell in each of those stores?
Yeah, so it's so funny. Again, jewelry shop. So I started with the jewelry. That was Spotlight Jewelry. I named it because that was my girls' camp. I went to like a church girls' camp growing up, and they gave everyone
Oh,
silly kind of names that went along with their personality. And so that was my camp name, was Spotlight.
oh.
Um, because I don't know, apparently I like the spotlight, maybe just a time, I don't know. Again, broadcasting major, YouTube, I'm just funny like that. But anyway, so Spotlight Jewelry, and then my again, that amazing husband of mine one day was like, "Babe, I love you so much. I love your business. You're doing great." He's always been super supportive, but he was like, "You just ordered 10,000 necklace chains." He was like, "I'm not sure you're going to sell 10,000 of this particular necklace."
Oh.
And what happened is, because I'm such a frugal person by nature, it's like I discovered that if I bought 10 necklace chains, it was this much, or if I bought 10,000 necklace chains, it was this much.
Oh.
And so I was like, "Oh, that's a good point." And so I was like, "Well, what if I open a supply shop?" And so that's what I did. I started buying my supplies in huge bulk to get that amazing
Yeah.
discount, and then having like kind of like an additional outlet to kind of like sell some of those supplies in smaller quantities
So the
uh,
supplies you sell are really exactly the same supplies you use to create your own jewelry.
yes, and this is such an interesting, because when I've been coaching other Etsy sellers, this is sometimes advice I give, sometimes not, just it really depends on the business. But the reality is there's pros and cons to that. I mean, this could almost be its whole own podcast episode. It's
Yeah.
great because it provides this additional revenue stream,
Mm-hmm.
but it has been an absolute nightmare with inventory management. Like 12 years into this, and this is probably, you were talking about like, what are my struggles today? Like,
Yeah.
this today is one of my huge struggles, because Etsy just does not have the capability to link Etsy shops, multiple listings when things are coming in and going out. It just does not have that capacity. So that's
Mm.
especially with, everything with supply chain and all of
Yeah.
that affecting everyone, it's gotten even worse. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I love it. It's super fun. I like having the two shops. They both do really well, but I don't know. It's not something that I would necessarily hindsight look back. Even now, it's like, should I get rid of one? This is really complicated. Just pick a lane and stay in it.
Yeah. So as far as inventory management, I would imagine that you have to have something in place right now, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't integrate with Etsy. Have you found a solution that works for you?
Yes. Oh gosh, such good questions. And I wish I had a better answer. So I am working with a team right now that's trying to help me do that. But what we
Okay.
have been doing for years and years and years is literally it hasn't been years and years and years. We just started doing this maybe like a year or two ago. It used to just be on a whiteboard, which again blows my mind. Like, how are we
Whoa.
doing that? But we now do everything in Excel. So it's like I have an entire Excel list of all of the inventory and where we get it from and how much we pay for it, and all of that. And then it's like when my employees go to a bin and they notice it's getting low, they write that goes in the Excel order section. And
Mm.
so they put that down, and then every, a couple times a week or something, I'm going through and kind of placing those orders like, okay, we need more of this, we need more of this, we need more of this. And then when they come in, they get put away and taken off the list. But yeah, so Excel, long story short, is how we've kind of been doing that. So
Kat, I have to say I'm shocked because when you were ramping up to say what the solution was, in my head I thought, I know she's not going to say Excel, but then a part of me thinks she's going to say Excel because it just seems mind-blowing that you would be running a store with almost 90,000 sales and using Excel. I thought you were going to say something sophisticated like, oh, Airtable or one of those programs. So
this is one of those, that's such a great point, Ijam. I'm telling you, like, if people, sometimes when I'm doing things in my business and I'm like, oh my gosh, if people could only see and understand how chaotic and jimmy rigged and duct taped things are sometimes, like, it's so funny to me. But that's a great point. Like, nope, it's just an Excel file. I'm like checking things off. It's nuts.
Yeah. Okay, so your first year you made about 500. When did you start to realize that your sales were really ramping up, and had you done something to accelerate your sales growth?
Yeah, the only thing, and this is a question that it's still like is so intriguing to me as a business owner, because people will ask me that, I'll have an amazing month and they're like, oh, well, what'd you do? And I was like, well, I mean, we did do this and we did do that, but I'm not, again, we're talking about so much areas of growth that I still feel like I could have in my business, but I don't have clear cut answers. So I know one of the things I really think is when I hired that first employee, I do think that really ramped things up for the first time. It kind of like put me at a new level. I think the next thing, so it was interesting. It's like I got my first employee. It really kind of like shot up, kind of put me at this new level, started, hiring a few more people here and there. And then there was several years, and this is probably back, I want to say like around 2017 or 18, that I had kind of plateaued a little bit and was a little bit frustrated. I mean, sales they were still really good, but it's like they weren't growing that like they had been before. And so I think one of the things that made a difference was I got more organized with my product launches.
Okay.
And I started listing more items, but a little more intentional with it. And I think obviously with e-commerce had a huge lift 2020, so we kind of rode that wave and have continued to ride it. And I think now I started getting a lot more systems and processes in place, which was huge. Like around, I think it was like, again, kind of COVID time, a little before that, some of my team had come to me. I think it was like one of those holidays, and they were like, look, we don't know if we can keep doing this because it's so crazy. I am like entrepreneur in my blood, and you're all over the board. And I'm just like dumping, like, hey, let's try this. Now let's do this. And my team is just like, they like whiplash, like, wait, what are we doing? Now we're doing this now, And so I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out. And I got a project management tool that I use now that my team uses. And I feel like that when we actually was like, okay, here's your job. This is when you're doing it. This is when it's due. This is the product launch. I feel like that was probably like the second bump. And again, that happened in the last couple years. And we've just really been doing exceptional ever since I put that project management tool in place and got those systems. Like people always talk about like, get your systems.
Yeah,
and I still don't feel like
I hear that all the time.
Yeah, but it really did. I think that's what's elevated it to kind of like another new level.
So is the project management tool you use one that everyone has access to? So one person can go in and see what they need to get done, and you can go in and see what your tasks are. And so that's how things keep moving?
Yes, yeah. So the one that we landed on is called Asana. And
Okay.
it's so interesting because we are actually still using the free version, which kudos to Asana for putting together such an amazing program. We are getting to the point where I'm like, oh, I probably should pay for their
Uh-huh.
actual plan because there's a few features that we're missing that I think would make life a little easier for some of us. But yeah, so everyone, you can do it different ways. Like we kind of have like, I have my business to-do list and I go through and I'm like, okay, here's all the things I need to get done. I really like it because it lets you repeat tasks. So for example,
Mhm.
like I know once a week I need to go into my books and organize all my transactions. And so every week that pops up like every Tuesday or whatever, like boop,
Okay.
like you need to do this. And then I check it off. And then next Tuesday, boop, you need to do your finances, you know?
Mhm. Speaking of which, what do you use for bookkeeping and tracking your those numbers?
No, don't ask me that, Ijama, because
Excel?
it's terrible. So don't do this. Let's talk about this piece of advice. So
Okay.
I have been using this program called Mint. Have you ever heard of it before?
I have. I have.
Yeah, don't use that.
No, is it not good?
So Mint is great for what it's designed to do, which is
Mhm.
be a personal budgeting kind of program. It's free. I get my husband and I were using it for our personal stuff. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just create a separate account for my businesses.
Mhm.
So, the gist of these type of programs is I put in all of like my business checking and savings and my business credit card or whatever. And then every transaction I make goes into Mint. And so then once a week I go through and I say, okay, this was shipping supplies, this was paying employees, this was buying
Mhm.
this was that. And so then at the end of the year when you do taxes, you can download it all, but it does not have the capabilities now that I am trying to for example, like it doesn't have a P&L statement, like a profit and loss statement.
Oh,
So
yeah.
too much information. I'm trying to buy a actual like a corporate location for my business, but the banks can't give me a loan because they don't know
They don't.
how profitable the business actually is because Mint doesn't do that. And so I'm trying to figure it out anyways. Point being, don't make my mistake. Get QuickBooks. I've never even used QuickBooks, but from what I hear, it's way better.
Yeah. So is the idea that you were trying to bootstrap everything and that's
Yes. And I
okay.
think it's also too, like it's sometimes tricky as an entrepreneur because it's
Mhm.
beautiful. You get a lot of tax write-offs, but
Mhm.
at the same time, that sometimes can affect how that looks as far as like how profitable your business actually is. And
Yeah.
it's really weird because I'm set up like an LLC, but I'm like, oh, maybe I should actually be an S corp. I don't. It's like that's on my docket next year. I'm not the best guest to go into all of that because I feel like I'm just a hot mess right now. But next year, we're starting in January. I'm going to get QuickBooks. I'm going to get an accountant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to figure this out a little better.
And I think Mint owned by some celebrity?
No, you know what you're thinking of, like super random side note. I think we also have it's Mint Mobile. Unless I don't know, I could be
Oh,
wrong.
yes.
But
Okay.
I think that's what's his bucket, like Ryan something is like,
Okay. Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Okay, so I don't know
yeah.
your Mint. I know Mint Mobile.
That's what we have. We have Mint Mobile too. So there you go. Shout out to Mint Mobile. But
Ah, okay. All right. Okay, so you're running the two stores, gradually expanding. How did you, when it came time to hire, how did you decide who would make a good member of your team, and where did you go to find them?
yeah, this is an important one for Etsy sellers. And I know, like, I can guarantee, Ijama, you are this this podcast that you do is absolutely incredible. I know there are so many Etsy sellers that are like on the edge of their seat right now, like, oh, I've been thinking about hiring someone. Like, what is she gonna say? Like, this is it's just so helpful. Like, thank you for me, from all of your
Ah,
listeners. I know everyone sitting here right now listening is like, this lady is amazing that she does this for us. So, on to hiring.
yes.
Okay, when I started, my first employee was done through personal. I'm trying to think how I even how I got a hold of her. I can't even remember. So most all of my employees I have done have been through my personal network, meaning I literally got on my Facebook, or my church has like a really active kind of like community,
Okay.
and I just was like, I am looking for a person to do this. Please reach out. Let me know if you know of anyone. And that's
Mm.
how I have hired every single person. And I know that may not be the answer that people want to hear, because, and then I feel for you. Like if you feel like you don't have something like that, like maybe a church or, a group of, like maybe you don't have a whole lot of like people in your Facebook or LinkedIn
Yeah.
or whatever you have, that can seem like, well, shoot, now what am I going to do? But that's really, again, I just feel like I got lucky, because then the people that I hire, they then have friends, they have family that then have
Yeah.
now, come in, and people
Okay.
just know, like, I just put it out, like people, I've been doing it for so long. I'm like the crazy jewelry lady. And my last hire came from my hairdresser, and she was like, hey, I just met this girl and she's super creative and loves crafts, and she just moved here and I think she would be great. You should call her if you need to hire someone. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually looking to hire. Great. And I
Wow.
called her and I interviewed her, and she's a part of the team now and she's doing awesome.
One of the things I really like about how you've grown your business is that you didn't seem to get distracted by the bells and whistles. For someone who listens to a lot of podcasts and a lot of podcasts about business and growing your business and all whatnot, one of the things that we get bombarded with are, services and tools galore. Use this tool to do this, and use that service to, like, I thought initially you were going to say you used some VA hiring website, website to hire virtual assistants and what have you. But the fact that you tap into, it seems time and time again, resources that are really easily accessible, your network, your church, your friends, your hairdresser, Excel, the free Asana, things like that, I think speak to part of why you have found success is not getting distracted by bells and whistles that I think sometimes as business owners, some of us might think is the, is it the golden egg? That lucky thing that
Yes.
if I just get this tool, I will be where this other person is who said they
Yeah.
use that tool. And that
Yeah.
hasn't been your story.
No, I think something that I still, and sometimes it's these like internal growing pains. They literally almost like are painful sometimes. But going back to like my YouTube channel, I always in the forefront of my mind is, oh gosh, now I have to like think how I word it. It's the concept of done is better than perfect. Like done is better than perfect. If you go to my new YouTube channel, I mean, like the last one I recorded, I had got done playing pickleball. My hair is in a ponytail. I'm not like a makeup person anymore. I used to be. That's a whole other like story, but it's so raw and it's not edited. And I'm like, I know that this is not my best. And I'm okay with that, because I know this is helping people and I know I will get better. And it's like, you have to. And so long with this YouTube channel, it's like I had to keep telling myself that over and over again. Just do it. Just put it out there, because you're not going to get better unless you just try it. Do ask your friends, use the Excel, like whatever, get rid of all of the roadblocks that you can. I was so hung up on editing my YouTube videos that I stopped making them for a while. And then finally I was like, I have to do this in one take or I will never post these videos. And that was my stumbling block. And as soon as I did that, it's like I've been able to post like starting every week, like boom, film it, post it, done,
Yes. Yeah. And
so anyway, same concept for Etsy. When you're starting anything, whether you're new, experience, like just keep like pushing through it.
yeah. And you mentioned helping people with your YouTube videos, which I do think are very helpful. But one of the things that you do is you support Kiva with every sale that you make in your shop. For anyone who doesn't know, can you explain what Kiva is and why you support them?
Yeah, that's a whole other like side track of how I start. I mean, Shark Tank came to my town a few years back and I was like gonna pitch my business, and I did. I ended up pitching my business to him, but before the pitch I was like, what am I doing?
Wait,
I'm
were you
making
on the
jewelry.
show?
No, 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 no. I did not make. That's what it's so funny. Like people see my pictures there with the Shark Tank and the producers or whatever. They audition you, and then it's like if you make it through the audition. And I kind of knew. I'm like, I'm selling jewelry. I'm not a new shop. I've been around for a long time. I kind of knew,
Yeah.
but I was like, they're literally like 10 minutes down the road. I have to at least try it. So, but
Wow.
what came from that is like when I sat down, and again, I've been doing the business for years, and I was kind of at that plateau where I was a little stuck, and I
Mhm.
sat back and I was like, what am I doing? I make jewelry. No one cares. It doesn't, I mean, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Jewelry is beautiful. But at that time, it's like, I was just really discouraged. Like, I'm not, it's just jewelry. It's not changing the world. It's not really helping people,
Mm.
which hindsight, of course, we all have things that we love and bring us joy that we purchase and wear or whatever, but it really made me take a look back and be like, why am I doing? And so that's where I did a little digging, and I was like, well, what do I love? I love entrepreneurship. What else
Mhm.
do I love? I'm really about like women empowerment and women in business. And so I stumbled upon this website called Kiva, and you can do, I think they call it like micro lending, but it's
Yeah.
so cool. So you can literally go on their website and you can look through just thousands of entrepreneurs that have been, they go through like a vetting process and they have to apply, and it's all very safe and secure, and it's a nonprofit. And but you can pick these entrepreneurs and loan them money. And that's the other thing I loved. It's
Mm.
not just like, oh, here's, free money. It's like, no, these people know it's an interest free loan though. So some people, they just need that extra help. There's so many
Oh
barriers
my.
for, different races and different countries and
Mhm.
genders and all sorts of different things that sometimes can stop people. And so this is like, it was a small way that I could help other female founders, female entrepreneurs across the world, or even like now we have a local chapter that just started here that's super fun. And so anyways, you can just go and you lend them money, and then it's like a very long, payback, and it's not always guaranteed. Like sometimes they're not able to repay the full loans or whatever, but I've
Yeah.
had so much success with that, and I really enjoy. I said my bucket list has always been like one day to be able to actually go to one of those countries and see one of
S-
those entrepreneurs and their
Yes, that would
business,
be
and
great.
that would be amazing. So putting that out to the universe.
Yeah, I think you'll make it. Yeah, I like the work Kiva does. I like I like their whole concept, and I didn't realize that all the loans were interest free, but it makes
Yeah.
sense based
Yeah,
on
so and
who.
that's something, I mean, you can do like extra donations. So I always like, because they tell you like, hey, this loan is costing us this much to kind of like facilitate if you would like to donate.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I do that too. I just donate to Kiva to help kind of fund them and support them and what they're doing. But yeah, the loans are interest free. I think there might be some like countries or things where they have to pay like by laws, like a little interest or something. I don't know. But by and large, that's the concept, is there interest free loans available to these entrepreneurs.
Okay. One of the things that you recently started doing is exploring beyond Etsy. And I know one of the platforms that you're on is Fair. Can you talk about Fair, how you ended up there, and how it I don't want to say ranks, but in comparison to Etsy, what it's like selling on Fair?
Yeah, so Fair is really interesting. We haven't been on that platform for, I think it's not even been a year yet.
Mhm.
But the biggest thing for Etsy sellers and Fair, which is something I'm going to preach all day, every day, anyways, you have to have your pricing right to
Mhm.
be able to sell on that platform, because it is a wholesale marketplace, meaning Fair has carved out this incredible niche, and I actually really, really, really like the company. They've been doing some amazing things, but they've kind of taken the idea of trade shows and flipped it on its head a little bit, meaning you boutiques from around the world now go to Fair online and they shop for brands that they want to carry in their store. So it's really cool if you are a woman-owned business, a minority-owned business, a eco-friendly business, a sustainable brand. If you don't sell on Amazon, like there's so many boxes that you can tick
Mm-hmm.
within what your business kind of does and stand for. And then retailers can search for those type of businesses like, hey, we want to look for a minority owned business or an eco-friendly business
Oh,
or,
I see.
whatever it is. And they can, they'll see all your items. So they purchase it at the wholesale price, which I think is generally, like 50% off or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so, if I have a pair of earrings, that's $20. So this boutique will order 10 pairs of that earring for $10 per earring. So I'll get that $100 and then they'll sell it for the retail price of $20 a pair. And so then they get $100. And so we kind of like, I don't even know. I'm like, maybe I did that math wrong,
No,
but
no.
that's the concept.
So when you compare margins, profit margins for wholesale and retail, which ones are better, the wholesale side or the retail side?
Yeah, I think it depends on how you look at it because wholesale, our orders are always bigger,
Mm-hmm.
but the markup is smaller. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just me personally, the longer I've been doing this, as much as I love Etsy, I would not be here without Etsy. They've literally like changed my life. I live I get to spend time with my kids and do something I love and it's creative and I love the platform and what they stand for by and large, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel good or safe. It's just that reality that I know every single person here listening is relating to, that
Yeah.
Etsy could shut you down at any moment for any reason. They could get shut down and then that's it. Like it's toast. Like, so, it feels so much better to have other options. And so for me, I really like both of those. So it's like, more higher volume sales on
Yeah.
Fair, smaller margins, less large orders, but higher margins on Etsy.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like Fair for me, it feels amazing to have, especially if you are in the handmade seller kind of like category, when you are coming up with the designs, when you're making something and selling it, like to have my items that I designed and created in boutiques around the world that people are buying and wearing around, New York, Texas. I mean, and I know people can do that when they shop on Etsy, but there's just something really cool to know that you could walk into one of these stores in these
Yeah.
locations and see my product there. That is still almost a little surreal,
Yeah. No,
and
that's
Fair, they make it so easy.
yeah, no, that's amazing to know that somebody could walk into a physical store who, wouldn't otherwise have known you existed and
Exactly.
walk out with, a ring that you made or earrings
Yeah,
that you made.
absolutely. Or soap. I know not everyone's selling jewelry, so
Or soap. Yes.
whatever thing you're doing.
Yes, yes. Um, and speaking about, not relying totally on Etsy, even though it has been a very profitable platform for you, what other plans do you have to expand beyond Etsy, just to make sure that if, God forbid, something happens on Etsy or to your Etsy shop, that your business still, keeps running and will continue to exist?
Yeah, absolutely. My radar for next year is getting my own standalone website. I think that for every Etsy seller, and maybe some sellers already have it. I know Shopify is definitely on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
Looking into that, I know I am not going to do spoilers, but Ijama and I off camera, she has been working on some really exciting stuff for you guys as well, kind of related to this area because I know this is such an important need for Etsy sellers. Like I
Yep.
literally, guys, I've done 100,000 sales on the Etsy platform, and you tell me to get on Shopify, and 12 years later, I'm still not there, and it's still so overwhelming and scary. And I'm just like, I've tried it even a couple times, and it's kind of failed and fallen flat. So I feel like there's so many Etsy sellers out there that are kind of in that camp of like, we know we're not supposed to be just on Etsy, but Etsy makes it so easy that sometimes it's really hard to like figure out something else. So
Yeah.
that being said, that is definitely on my radar. I toy with the idea of Amazon. That one again is also very overwhelming, borderline. I'm not even sure it kind of aligns with my brand and what I'm doing, but I'm like, I've thought about it. I know there's a lot of buyers over there, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's on your radar. And we talked about this before starting the recording. And for anyone who I'm a fan of Etsy. I know, and I still say I believe it's a great place to start, a great place to grow, but it has its limitations if you really want to grow and scale. And so it's always good to have your eye on how else you can continue to grow your brand. And one of the things I like to tell people is, yes, somebody will come to your shop on Etsy and buy your jewelry, but when their friends and family ask them, where did you get those, wonderful earrings or that necklace? They'll say Etsy, especially now with all the commercials. They'll say, oh, I got it on Etsy. I got it on Etsy. Not, I got it from Spotlight Jewelry. And
Absolutely.
so if you're a seller on Etsy, just keep that in mind that, your brand really isn't yours unless you own it outright. But we digress.
I'm almost like I don't want to digress too much here, Ijama, but I'm really curious. So I'm going to put something out there and you tell me what you think. So
Sure.
I've always felt like on Etsy, one of the reasons I think my shops have done really well is because I was a little more diverse. It's like if you go to my jewelry shop, even like the supply shop as well is kind of same thing, but I don't just sell one type of thing. I don't just sell, gemstone jewelry or steampunk jewelry or like I sell kind of like a little bit of a hodgepodge. Like I really don't like to, it's been hard for me to niche down. And I actually think in some ways that's helped me on Etsy. Obviously it still all makes sense. It's jewelry. It has, you can see the photos and stuff go together well, but it's with my standalone website, I'm almost, for some reason, I'm under the belief that if I can niche down better on my own website, I think it will do better because I can target people better with my ads and my post. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It's definitely easier to drive traffic to a site that is known for something. And so if you have a particular, and it doesn't have to be because you make different types of jewelry, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you have to only do earrings, but maybe earrings for a certain audience, that also is a different type of niching. So if you like to be creative and make different products, but you can tailor them to a particular market of people, a particular group of buyers, you can still talk to those people. And, somebody in that group that will wear earrings will also wear, a necklace, will also wear, a, bandana or whatever, what have you. So there are different ways to niche down, but if you just keep in mind who you want to talk to and not necessarily what you want to sell to them, it makes it easier. And it's also easier for the search engines to figure out who you're talking to. Because you're going to be talking to your buyer and you don't want to necessarily talk to the search engines in their language. You want them to interpret what you're telling your buyer, and then they can help you find those buyers. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Based on
That's like exactly what I needed to hear. I'm super excited. I have this idea. It's like after 12 years, something finally clicked. And I was like, I think I know what I need to do
oh, so
to niche
exciting.
down. Yes, and so that's why I'm like, again, I'm like, if I'm going to build a website, I think I want it focused around this one. So it's still going to be jewelry,
Yeah.
but I found like this one thing that I'm like, I love this. This is
Yeah.
really cool. And I think it's all within that one genre, which I've never been
Yes.
able to do before on Etsy. Because Etsy as a marketplace, that's one of my tickets to how I've been so successful. And again, I know there's some people it's social media, some people it's being featured. There's so many different things, but for me, I think I've really just like clamped down on SEO. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like when I go to do a product launch, I am literally looking for keywords that a lot of people are searching that not as many sellers are selling right now within my industry. And again, it has to be something I'm interested in doing and
Yeah.
able to put together or whatever. But because of that, that's kind of limited my ability to niche down. And so that's why I say it's interesting. I think if you're just selling on Etsy, sometimes that can almost work to your advantage because you're able to attract of all the people coming to Etsy, you get this person and this person and this person, but it doesn't build a like almost like a long-term, like this is what I'm known for. This is what I do. And because
Yeah.
I mean, there are Etsy shops I see that do way better at that than I do. And I'm like, oh, I know like this Etsy shop, this is what they sell. And that's it,
And that's
like they got it packed
yes.
down. And so I finally, anyway, so point being, if you're in that camp, like don't beat yourself up too much, because I would do that sometimes with my Etsy shop and be like, oh, I'm not niche down enough, which might be true, but I actually feel like if you're just selling on Etsy, like sometimes that can help you. But now if you're like me and find yourself where you're like, okay, I really need to expand a little bit more, I feel like niching down is really what I need to try to do a little better.
Yes. Yeah. Because there's a lot of noise out there. And so you want the people who are listening for what you're saying to hear it
Yes,
in
yes,
all
for
in all
sure.
the noise. Great point. Kat, you're going to do so well.
Ijama, so are you with all of your exciting stuff that you haven't totally talked about that again I won't spoil. But guys, I mean, and I feel so bad. We're doing this right now. We shut off our cameras for the audio, but
Yeah.
before we were video calling before the call, like this Ijama is absolutely beautiful. I need everyone write her an email, however you can get a hold of her, and just tell her like, Ijama, put your face on the cover. Like we want to see you. You are so just fun and beautiful. And I want everyone to experience even more of you.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate that. Now, you mentioned social media in passing is something that you just said, and I want to talk about that. Do you use social media much or at all to help drive traffic to your shop, or is it's not part of your marketing?
Yeah. So the the good news is you don't have to do a ton on social media to be successful on Etsy, because I am
Mhm.
proof of that. It's one of those things. I feel like that is absolutely an opportunity for my business. But if I
Yeah,
do it, at this point, I will absolutely be paying someone to do that.
to
And I
do.
have before. I had a social media girl,
Oh,
and she was amazing. And she did Pinterest, she did Instagram. You can kind of like see where things have faded off. But she left a little while ago for just another job, another opportunity. And
hmm,
after she left, I was like, I'm not doing that. Like it's just one of those things where you're swimming upstream.
yeah,
And for me, I personally don't use social media. It's not something that enriches my life. If anything, sometimes I feel like it hurts it a little more. So I got off
hmm,
years ago, Instagram, Facebook,
hmm,
all of that. Like it's not my jam. And so for the business, that's just been one of those things that's been hard for me. It's like I'll try to post up and it's like pulling teeth. And so
yeah,
I feel like when you're starting, I would me again, this is just my experience. I focused more on kind of like SEO and really good
Okay.
product photography and getting high quality, good customer reviews, going above and beyond all of those things, and put way less time and energy into social media because I couldn't,
Okay.
like, I didn't like doing it, you know?
Yeah. Now, when your social media manager left, did you notice a significant change in your sales?
Oh, and this is, yes, this is another really good point. I think one of the other reasons I'm so discouraged about social media is not just
Mm-hmm.
my personal, I like, oh, I'm not that interested in it, I'm not that good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But Etsy, I feel like, does not equip us with enough information and tools to make it worth it. And what I mean by that is the girl I had doing my social media was posting these awesome pins on
Mm-hmm.
Pinterest, and we were getting really good traction. And I'd be like, wow, Etsy will tell you, like, hey, you had like, I can't even remember the number. Let's say like 10,000 views
Yeah,
from
from
Pinterest. And
Pinterest.
I'm like, oh, that's great. How many of those people actually bought something? You don't know. Like,
Crickets.
there's
Yeah.
no way. Etsy doesn't give you that information, which I feel like is a real tragedy. I need, again, contact my Etsy people, because I'm like, I'm happy to pay for Pinterest ads if I know they're working, but because you don't
Yeah.
give me that information, it's really hard to justify spending money on stuff. So, long way to answer your question. It's like, I think I saw a dip in sales,
Mm.
but I'm not actually sure because I just don't have access to that data. So it's like one of those things, like, well, until I find someone else to do that, I guess we're just not doing it right now.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. It's so hard to really gauge the return on the investment in, social media marketing with Etsy sales. I mean, unless of course, like on Instagram, people will, let you know personally. But again,
Yes.
it's not, you don't get concrete numbers from that.
Yeah.
So
So let's put that out there too, Ijama. If anyone listening knows of a way to track conversion via social media channels, come on Ijama's show. We'd love to hear
yeah.
from you.
Well, and I know Pinterest just made it even harder because now you can't
No.
link your Etsy shop to Pinterest
What?
anymore.
Oh, I hadn't even heard that. That's terrible. Shoot.
Yeah, so it's even
Well,
harder.
there we go. Let's go back to our original time to get a website concept.
Yeah, yeah, it's the way to go. Okay, Kat. Now you've had over 100,000 sales on Etsy in both shops combined. In all of that, I assume that you have had to deal with unhappy customers or negative feedback, or maybe not bad reviews, but just hiccups along the way. How have you dealt with those?
Yeah, they can be super discouraging for
Mm-hmm.
anyone. And again, it's time has kind of like made that easier. So this is actually, I want to make a YouTube video about this because it's
Mm.
such an important piece. But when it comes to customer service, we do several things. Like, we are making sure we're responding to the messages quickly. But then one of the things that I actually recently, again, going to Asana, so I added for one of my employees that does kind of like the jewelry messages and orders and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I added one of her tasks now. What she does is, I think we're having her do it maybe twice a month or something. She goes and looks at the feedback that people have been leaving about the jewelry, and she contacts anyone who's left us less than a 4-star review.
Hmm.
And because a lot of those times, and don't get me wrong, like, people message me on Etsy and we bend over backwards for our customers. It's lost in the mail, we're reshipping it. It's broke, done. Here's a return label, send it back. Like, whatever
Mm.
needs to happen. Like, if you contact me, I'm going to do everything to make that right for you. But there's a lot of, no, I wouldn't say a lot. There's still some people that will just leave you a negative review and never even contact you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that she's doing now, is she personally, after they leave us a negative review, she will reach out to them, respond to the review, whatever they were talking about. It got broke, it was bigger than I thought, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's in the description. You guys know how that goes.
Yeah.
Like, So she will then say, hey, we're so sorry. Thank you so much for taking the time to leave feedback. We're happy to make this right. Here's what we're going to do. Does that work for you? Is there anything else we can do? Blah, blah, blah. And there's a good chance, and then after she ships it, she'll still like follow up, a week or so later and say, hey, we just want to make sure everything arrived, good, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times people will change their reviews. Like they're so kind and generous on Etsy. And if you're just open and honest and, put yourself in your buyer's shoe, always give them the benefit of the doubt. Like people really respond well to that. I mean, we've had some customers that were like shocked. They're like, oh, like they were super mean in their emails and we're so nice back that they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was having a really bad day. I'm not actually like as mad as I was or something,
Yeah. That's
so
good.
yeah, that's a really, really good point. I'm glad you bring that up to your listeners because I think you're absolutely right, Ijama. That's an important one for Etsy.
Yeah, and they have said that customer service is a ranking factor in search, which basically, boils down to your reviews and your star reviews is different from the star seller program. So so it's good to handle those. And I know as a one person show for, many people who listen, it feels very personal and seems to be tedious to have to do this on your own, but it does help and it does pay off. So it's worth the time and effort it takes. Well, maybe even more worth than posting on social media.
Yeah, I am in that camp for sure. Let me just put this out to your listeners too, Ijama, because I know what you said. Some people are like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. If you are in that camp, you're either in one of two camps. You have so many orders and things going on in your Etsy shop that you legit don't have time to do something like that. And if that's the case, that's when it's time to hire someone. But if you're not, if you don't have that many orders coming in at this point, you should have the time to do that because it's important. You know what I mean? Like it's like an interesting, like, I don't know. I personally feel like it's something that makes a huge difference. You want to know, we'll do one more quick spoiler for good customer reviews.
Yeah.
Okay. We love to send a free gift with every purchase and our customers just absolutely adore that. Like it's one of our favorite things. Yes, we do. Again, that's spoiler from my YouTube video that I'll be talking about. But with every purchase, they get every month, we have a different pair of charm earrings that we put together and we put it in a cute little envelope with a little thank you card. And people, when they leave us 5-star reviews, they talk about how fast we shipped our items, the cute packaging, and the free gift. Like those are, and besides, if they just love the item and the quality, but those are 3 things that get brought up consistently. And I'm not telling, like, I'm serious with the free gift. That is so frequently followed with, we'll be back. And she even included a free pair of earrings. It made my day. We'll be back,
Yeah.
Like it's all those little pieces. It's not a one, like you said before, it's not a one shot bullet that's going to win you the prize. It's so many, all the pieces of the puzzle and how they all fit together. It's the good photos, customer service, all of those things.
Yeah. I like that. I always wondered, how some sellers are able to do that. In your case, with the volume you do, how do you plan for, to be able to give free gifts to all your customers?
Yeah, it's, well, again, and you have to look at it. Don't just listen to what I'm saying about the jewelry and my business and think like, oh, I got to go do this thing. Like be you, listen to your gut, be creative. Like what is going to work for my particular business? So for me, I buy my supplies in bulk. So I have just so many pieces of jewelry. I have one of the ladies that works with me. What she likes to do is she likes to put these little free earrings together while she's watching TV at home. And so I pay her per, like I kind of timed it out and was like, okay, this is about how long it takes to make each of these little things and, do the math or whatever. So she, every month, that's what she does. She puts together however many, 100 of those, we call them our thank you gifts. Yeah. And so she puts them, she puts the earrings on, she puts them on the card, she puts the little envelope, seals it up. Wow. And then ready to go. So every order, then she just boop, sticks them
Drops
them
them in
in.
there.
So, but again, it doesn't have to be. It can be if you're an eco-friendly brand, maybe it's like flower seeds. If it's, if you're a
Yeah.
baking company, maybe it's like a little piece of candy or a sample or something.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many things. If you're stationary, if it's, maybe it's a free download, it's whatever sticker, like anything you can think of to just that. Again, you got to keep, obviously cost is always a consideration, but
Yeah.
just really dig deep, like get creative, trust yourself. Don't just look at what everyone's doing. Don't just copy other people. Get ideas, but really try to own it and make it your own. Like customers feel that.
Yeah. I like that. Now, speaking of getting creative with how you treat your customers, do you ever get into creative ruts when it comes to making new products and getting ideas for new products? And if you do, how do you come out?
Yes. I feel like I was in one just a couple days
Recently?
ago. I'm trying to do our fall launch, and I'm just so overwhelmed with all the different ideas, and I'm looking at all the keywords and the SEO, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know. Do I put this bead here or do I put it over here? Like, so I think, I mean, the biggest piece of advice, just what I try to do is have, reconnect with yourself, like take the step back, take the breather. What do you like? Listen to uplifting podcasts, like just get, maybe order some new supplies. Like that's like a high for me. I don't know if any other like handmade sellers relate to that, but if I've ordered like new supplies and they're coming in and I'm like looking at, I'm like, okay, how am I going to put this stuff together, come up with this new design? So yeah, creative ruts. I think I wish I had something a little better or deeper for your audience, but that would probably be it. Just take some space, do something you love, get away from it for a minute,
Yeah. I think that always helps. When you get an idea for a new product, what's the timeline from idea to creation to actually having it up and ready for sale on average or typically?
Yeah. So right now, this one used to be a lot faster. It used to be, I would literally just come up with an idea sitting at my table, put it together, take some pictures, list it. That's how it used to kind of roll, but now we do for my business. And that's where I talked about kind of like Asana kind of really helped us hone in on that. But we do 4 product launches a year for the jewelry. We do winter, summer, spring, fall. Okay. And so we are right now. And again, my supply situation, it's a lot longer now because of just how long it takes me to get a lot of the supplies I need. But I am all ready. So we're in June right now, and I am trying to finalize designs for the fall, which I think are planning to launch September 1st, if I remember right. And so I'm finalizing designs now, and then we'll schedule the photo shoot probably for like July, and my assist, as soon as I get those designs done, she's already like putting those in drafts. So they're ready to go in September. So she's like working on the SEO and the description and, how tall, what their dimensions are and colors and all of that.
Wow. You really do have a well-oiled machine that you're running, huh?
It's so fun. It's so fun. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it's really,
it's working.
It's so nice. Like we all, like whoever, and this is, I really want to drive this point home to whoever is listening. I do not want any sellers out there to feel discouraged or bad. Like I know you hear people say this, and I heard people say this when I was there, but like everyone starts at zero. Everyone does. And it, sometimes like there's sellers, like it's taken me 12 years to get here. There are some sellers who ramp up better than me in like 6 months, like it's all about just like running your own race and take that. Like, I really hope this is inspirational and motivational to know that this is absolutely possible, but it's not going to happen overnight and it's going to take some work. But as hopefully it's like it's never the destination, it's the journey. And hopefully this is a reminder to all of us, myself included, that we are loving the process. Like I am sitting here and I am still stressing about, oh my gosh, I got to get bigger. I got to go faster. I got to go faster.
Mm.
I got to get my website. I got to do this. I got to, and it's like,
Mhm.
look at where you are. No matter who, if you've made 10 sales, if you've made 100,000, there are people who have made 1 million sales on Etsy, probably, that are way ahead of me,
Yeah.
but just like, again, maybe I'm just speaking to myself, like, take a moment to really look at where you are and what you've done. Maybe you haven't even started your shop yet. Maybe you have. That in and of itself is huge. You
Yeah.
had the guts to start an Etsy shop. There's so many people who aren't even there yet. Like, you're already 10 steps ahead of someone else who's like so overwhelmed. Like, I don't even know how to get my items up there and going on Etsy, and you're already there doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe you've had sales. Like, there's so many wins that we all as Etsy sellers, I think, need to give us grace and just be celebrating those. Like, you are putting things out in the world. You're putting yourself out there in the world. And it's beautiful. So
Yeah.
that's
It's funny you mentioned maybe you're talking to yourself. I feel like a lot of times stuff I say on the podcast, when it sounds like I'm giving advice, I really am
Yes.
talking to myself. Like, if somebody else benefits from it, great. But
Great.
most of the time it's self-talk.
Calm down, woman. You're doing great. Just breathe. You're not going too slow. You're fine.
I want to ask you about, you mentioned that you have seasonal releases. What happens if a particular product line doesn't do well? How do you deal with it? Do you just pull it from the store? How much time do you give it to see if it's going to sell at all, or do you just keep things till the right person comes along?
Yes, Ijama, you really are. Do you know how good you are at your job, right? Like, these questions, every question, I feel like, I'm like, oh, that's such a good question. Oh, that's such a good question. Like, I don't know. Because
you're awesome. It's stuff I want to know. So self-talk.
Yeah, for sure. It's stuff, that exactly. Like, I listen to the podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, how do you do that? So for us, where we've landed right now in the business, and again, it's gone through different iterations.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to because again, it takes a lot to list an item on Etsy if you're doing it right, like getting the good photos, working on the SEO. So I like to let my products on Etsy live for at least a year.
Oh,
so
okay.
I launched something in the fall. And again, I'm like, maybe this is bad advice, Ijama. I don't know.
No, go on.
But I'll launch it, in the fall, and I will let it have a whole season, because there's some, like, for summer, we launched some sunflower earrings. Those are probably going to do better in the summer than the winter. So you just never know. So I like to let them live for a year.
Okay.
And then after a year, we're on kind of like, we're trying this new system where basically we have switched all our items from, what do they call it? You can do
automatic
either
renewal to manual.
Yes, that's it. So we have that turned off of all our items. So again, one of my, one of the women I work with, I think she's doing it weekly right now. One of her things that she does is she goes in and looks at the items that are about to expire, and she checks and sees, like, okay, have they been listed for a year yet? No, then they just get renewed. They get put back on the shelf. They get to live for a year. But if there's an item that is due to expire that has been listed for more than a year, then she looks at that. And I think, if I remember right, the last thing we landed on is I just kind of gave her permission, and we talked about it. And I said, I trust you to figure it out. But she looks at that item and she says, okay, was this a top seller before and suddenly it's dropped off? Does it need a new photo? Does it need some new SEO? Or do we just think it's had its time and it's not doing it, and we're going to go ahead and take it out?
Okay.
So that's kind of our process. We're, over time, like, where things are getting deleted. And
that's I think you're the first person who has actually verbalized that, but that's what I started to do. I used to have automatic renewals turned on for everything, so I wouldn't have to think about it. And just this year, late last year or earlier this year, I decided to switch everything to manual. And now when things come up for renewal, because Etsy will send you an email saying, you have many, so you have your system, but when I get that email, I manually review everyone, and I look at how many sales each of those items have gotten, and how many renewals I've
Yep.
I've allowed them, and I will just let some things go. Yes, it goes against, what is sometimes considered the ruling philosophy of, have lots of inventory. But I feel
Yeah.
like if it's just languishing, it's
Yeah.
not worth the 20 cents, even if it is only 20 cents.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, let me ask you this, Ijama. How many new items are you listing right now?
Ha.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I have I have a lot of products in draft mode, which
Okay.
has over time kind of become a graveyard for
Uh-huh.
those products, because I don't want to release them, because based on how certain things sell, I just know some of those aren't going to be big sellers. So what I have started to do is, when something sells, I put it on a list to make more like that, like what's already selling. And
Okay.
so the reason I have so many things in draft mode was because I wasn't doing things the smart way. I wasn't doing keyword research first. I was doing,
Uh-huh.
this is what I want to create, this is what I want
Yeah.
to sell. And so after I see that, certain things similar to what's already in draft has, I've renewed it, 2-3 times and not one has sold, then I know, well, why am I going to pay 20 cents to sell something similar if that's not moving? But then the things that are, now I know, okay, make something else like this, make more of, this, and list that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, Ijama, I'm going to put this out there and you tell me what you think. So
Yeah.
sometimes I feel I understand what you're saying, because that's a great practice. Look at what's selling, make more of that, right?
Yeah.
But there is something to be said. So sometimes I have found in my shop, if I have more of a certain type of item, it will organically do better. And I have a theory. And again, this is something I've talked to when I'm coaching my people and noticed in my own shop. So Etsy, I have never heard Etsy say this, but it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me. And my experience is telling me, let's go with wreaths, for example. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you make Christmas wreaths.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you open a shop and you launch 50 items, 50 Christmas wreaths. Some are snowmen, some are Santa Claus. I've got 50 of these Christmas wreaths.
Mm-hmm.
Another seller sells photography, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to try a wreath. I learned how to do this. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm going to list this Christmas wreath in my shop. Okay. So I believe that ranking, Etsy knows that. And again, no one quote me on this. This is my suspicion, because none of us knows the magical algorithm, but I really believe that Etsy crawls our shops and sees how many times that keyword is listed in our shop. How many times is Christmas wreath in this lady's shop? How many
Mm-hmm.
times is it in this lady's shop? And I believe they are showing those items that have more of those items on the top page, because Etsy knows buyer mentality. If I'm looking for a Christmas wreath, there is a higher probability I will buy one from a shop that has 50 options than just the one.
Oh.
So this is something, again, because I've looked when I do, incognito searches of different things. Like if I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for, lavender soap,
Mm-hmm.
those lavender, that's even a little more niche. Let's go. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, let's go just let's go lip gloss. Okay. Like if I'm looking for a eco-friendly lip gloss, if that's even a thing.
I'm sure it
Okay.
is.
I type it in the search bar. That's a terrible example. We'll just go with it. And all of those items, if I look at that first page, I feel like when I click on one of those items on the first page and I go to the shop, they have 20 other items that are eco-friendly lip glosses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm just wondering, for all of everyone out there to consider, sometimes you might try to list all of those items that are similar to give them more of a chance of being shown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's, again, it's not doctrine. I just wanted to put that out there, and, for you, for other
But
sellers, just
it's,
something that I've thought about and noticed in my shop. Like if I do a
yeah.
new something, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm launching, like right now, spoiler, we're getting ready to do some fan poles. It's a little outside the realm of jewelry, so I'm kind of like, but again, we have the components. It's a lot of the same stuff. So we are going to launch not one of them to see if it sells, but I'm launching 10 different designs, because
Okay.
that's going to give it its highest chance of success. I feel like if I do one, that's not giving it a fair shake, because I'm
Yeah.
competing against a shop that has 100.
Yeah. You're right. Actually, that makes logical sense because
Yeah.
when I think about it, because yes, I'll put this in a different way. That somebody was telling me, if you have to have eye surgery, you want to go to the doctor that has done 100 of them
Absolutely.
over the doctor that has done maybe 5 or 6
Sure,
of
for
those
sure.
procedures. So yes, it makes sense that if someone thinks, if I'm doing a lot of that, they're more likely to see more value in my okay. I want to rephrase what you said, but yes, I get it, Kat. I get it.
Just chew on it, think about it, with all of
Yeah.
those. I'm just picturing all of those beautiful giraffes just sitting there wanting to have a chance to show them up.
Well, thank goodness that Etsy doesn't delete the drafts. So yeah.
You have some time, think it over.
Yeah. Okay, so Kat, what is one lesson about selling on Etsy that you learned the hard way and you can save someone else from going down that hard road?
I definitely think this one's, it's a little embarrassing. I don't like to talk about it a whole lot because I'm a little ashamed.
Oh.
Like, please, no one, like, promise, like, you won't judge me. But I remember I have this story. So wait, this was years and years and years and years ago. I was just kind of starting on Etsy, selling the jewelry, and I ran across these earrings that a lady had done, and I just thought they were so beautiful. They're kind of like a V, so it's like the V goes through your ear, and then she would hang kind of like beads, kind of like flowers and things off of that V.
Hmm.
So anyways, I was just like, man, and again, I didn't copy her exact design, but I was like, I think I could. Like, that was her whole shop. Like, that's what she did. And the photos were beautiful. And I was so, like, inspired. But so I tried to kind of like replicate what she had done. And it just flopped and failed. And there's
Oh.
like, it was such an interesting thing for me, because I really, like, learned that lesson of, like, be yourself. I know we say it all the time, but the more I am that
Yeah.
within my own shops, and I stop worrying, and don't get me wrong, I still absolutely, like, I look at competition, I look for ideas, I look for trends, I do all of that. But I feel like you can feel it in your gut
Mm-hmm.
when like, hey, this is something that is true to me,
Yeah.
and this is just me trying to be like someone else. Because that's
Yes.
why, when people talk about, because don't get me wrong, I have plenty of people that have copied, for lack of better, where my designs, like, it's very specific ones where you're like, I am almost positive that came, but none of those have lasted. And that's the same thing for myself when I've tried to do it. Like, that's probably, like, my best piece of advice is, I'm not worried about those people, because I know they're going to come and go, because it's not in them, it's in
Yeah.
me. And it's like, I'm going to keep coming up with those things because it is me, and I don't have
Yeah.
to fight so hard for it. And they're always 10 steps behind. And it's like, if you can learn to love yourself, to trust yourself, like, I really feel like that can be reflective. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect at it. Like, it's always going to be a process, but the more I can really tap into trusting myself, loving myself, believing, like, letting me come through in my shop and how I'm showing up, I think it makes a big difference. So that's a piece that I always love to leave with people is, I feel like in the long run that will serve you time and time again.
I love that because a lot of times, and especially when I watch YouTube videos and they're doing demonstrations of things, they will say, "Oh, just use this for inspiration, but don't copy. Use it as inspiration, but don't copy." But what is missing is exactly what you said, is it still has to feel like you. Even if you're inspired by something, if it doesn't feel like you when you're creating it, you probably won't, keep it, or it probably won't come out the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is one thing about selling on Etsy that you really like right now? And then what would you like to see Etsy as a platform? What feature would you like to see them implement that doesn't currently exist on the platform?
Oh, yes. This is also one of my favorite questions that you sometimes like to go into. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is good stuff here. Okay, shoot. And
I'm always afraid for Etsy. You're so excited.
I know, right? Etsy knows. I'm actually, especially like I said, I'm doing this Etsy U program with them this year. I love Etsy. Etsy knows they've got my heart. And I'm not saying, I'm not putting them on a pedestal. I know they are not perfect people. I know shops get shut down. There's terrible things that happen for, their company. They're doing their best. I really do believe at their heart, they're trying to do the best that they can and, for their sellers. So I actually, believe it or not, I actually have, and I didn't bring it in here on my phone. I have a list and it's called my Etsy wish list.
Oh. Well, you've been around long enough. You should have a wish list.
That's literally, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Like, put it on the list. And I think I did at some point, especially being in this program with them, I have shared some of those things. But you know how it is. They're big. They've got a million things going on. Gosh, I would say my, probably just right now, because it's at the forefront, I would love a way to manage my inventory better. I would also, and this is something, so we talk about me listening to your podcast. I got this one from your podcast. And now I'm like, oh, I actually think there's other ones out there since I've learned about this one that I wonder might be a little bit easier. But anyways, I use Aweber for my emails.
Yeah.
And I learned that, like, I was listening to your podcast and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for something that would do this for so long. So I wish that Etsy, because I find Aweber to be a little bit harder. Again, I'm allergic to all things tech. So it's probably not that hard. It's probably pretty easy. But for me, it's a little overwhelming actually sending an email to my Etsy customers that have, legally subscribed and done all of that stuff. Yeah. But I wish they had a way for us to email customers built in. But then again, I get it. They want to keep people on their platform and they don't want us sending them to our own websites and whatnot. Right. So
yeah.
Those are my wish lists. The things. And did you ask what was the other one that Etsy's doing good right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Tools I'm enjoying. What am I enjoying on Etsy right now? I'll just say this one because I was like, man, this is a really nice feature. I really like their how they automatically email our speaking of email, again, ironically related. They email our people who have favorited our item, left items in their cart, or returning customers, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
You can set that up so you put whatever percentage discount. And I get it. Like some sellers think it's a little gimmicky and people would buy the stuff anyways and they don't like it. But for me, I don't know. I look at the numbers of how many people actually use that and how many sales, and maybe they would have bought regardless, but still I'm like, I don't know. That's it's all automatic. I'll take that,
Yeah.
So I kind of like that feature they do.
Yes, I like that as well. When I figured that out, I went ahead and set that up too. And that's the type of thing. I'm glad they introduced that feature, because that's the type of thing, say you have a Shopify site, you might have to pay for use a paid app to add that functionality to your site. And, there's some free ones, but then you lose some bells and whistles. But yes, having things like that included on the platform helps to make it easier. Because, marketers are like, send that. There's something they call it. I can't remember. Cart abandonment emails.
Yeah,
Yes.
abandoned cart. Yeah.
Yes, abandoned cart emails. So, yeah. And if you're someone who, when you look at your Etsy shop from the outside, not logged in, and you see things like 5 people have this in their shopping carts, over 20 people have this in their shopping carts, you need to turn that feature on. Get those people to buy.
Yeah.
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 Wow, Kat, I still have so many questions for you. I feel like,
and I'm so long-winded. I'm so sorry.
No. I feel like we have a part 2 brewing, but not just yet. I'm not ready to let you go just yet.
Okay.
Etsy you mentioned. How can people find out when you're going to do a session and how to join one of your sessions?
Oh, yes. Okay, so fun. So let's try to get techie here, Ijama.
Okay.
I have an Etsy live presentation coming up. I think it's in like a couple weeks.
Yay.
It's going to be good. It's going to be on photography.
Okay.
Because I know so many people struggle with this. So we're going to be talking about, the hows, the whys. I'm going to be sharing my own personal, this is how I'm doing it. This is the stuff I'm using. But I will see if I can send you, there's an actual link that you can sign up for that event to be notified. And you'll have to help me. I'm not sure if I should send you the actual YouTube link or the event link on Etsy. So we'll see if we can get that in your show notes.
Okay.
But also people can go, if you go, I wish Etsy made it a little easier to find.
Yeah.
But if you go to the forums in Etsy, up at the top, there's something that says seller events. So actually really cool, not just for my training I have coming up in July, but there's a lot of other, I think Etsy sometimes does some, but then they also have other sellers on the program doing different trainings about different things. So go to Etsy forums, seller events. You'll see the one I'm doing on photography coming up in July. But yeah, and then you can just register. They're all for free. It says the time and place. They're all done via YouTube live. So you just go to, my YouTube channel or whoever's hosting the event, and you can type. I always do like a Q&A afterwards, which is super cool. People can type in the chat bar, some of their questions and stuff. And it's just really, really fun to, get to see me, hang out, ask some questions.
Yeah.
Hear from other sellers. So it's fun.
And again, this is a free event, and you have direct access to the Etsy education team. So what you're teaching is not conjecture just made up by you. This is it's vetted information from Etsy about how to do what you're doing.
They're so trusting. They're funny because we're not supposed to, I'm always, I'm supposed to make sure people know, I'm not a paid Etsy. I don't actually work for Etsy. It's just kind of like this program. We as sellers volunteer because we love Etsy and we love helping other sellers, but they give us some pretty awesome training. And that's why I wanted to do it, is because I've been selling on 12 years and I went through that training and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such good information. Yes, I knew some of it, but some of it was oh yeah, I had forgot about that. I need to do that. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. When I did that with them too, I thought, oh my goodness, you guys, I thought you had told us all there was to know, in the seller handbook.
Everyone should see this training.
Right, exactly. So yeah, if you're listening to this anytime before but it's on your YouTube channel, Kat, will it be available after you do the live session?
As long as I can get the technology to behave. I'm pretty sure the last one I did on launching products is on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And this one I will try, as long as, like I said, I don't mess anything up. It should be available on the channel. The training, for those listening though, I'm pretty sure, and again, I'm so funny, I didn't bring my phone with me. Pretty sure it's July 21st, again, time zones around kind of noon.
Okay. All right. And if you just want to be sure of the time, go to the show notes for this episode, and I will have all the actual information there, so you can double check that. And if you want to hop over while you're listening to this, you can't really watch YouTube. But right after we finish this conversation, Kat's YouTube channel is Kat Hutchings. Just search for Kat Hutchings and you'll very easily find her YouTube channel.
Yes.
Kat, what are some of your favorite tools for, well, you've mentioned a lot already, but are there any others that you find particularly helpful that you haven't yet mentioned that help you just run your business day to day and be productive?
Yeah, I think one of this is a funny one, but I live by like my Dymo 4XL printer. I remember that was a big stretch when I bought that years and years ago. It was like,
Yes.
oh, this is really expensive, but man, like that sucker, like I can't even imagine cutting and printing labels. It's just little stuff like that. Like what's another?
Yes.
I was trying to think of some of like my tools. I mean, I mentioned the Asana, of course, like the goodies. Like I love both Marmalade, Sales Samurai. What I want to do, Ijama, with because SEO and these tools are like so big. I've thought on my channel, I want to do like a kind of like a showdown, and I want to get all of the Marmalade, the Sales Samurai, like all of these different ones, and interview each one and be like, okay, tell me what yours does, why people would like it, and then just have like a series so people can actually know, because I feel like there's starting to become more and more. I almost get overwhelmed sometimes, like and I use multiple and love multiple, but whew.
You should do a panel interview.
Oh, that would be
with the
scary.
Marmalade guys, the E-Rank guy, Sales Samurai guy. Do a panel interview and just have them go head to head. Not like fighting, but like, hey,
I would love that, Ijama, but it also like I'm like everything kumbaya, like everyone is good, we're all winners, like so I don't know, that would be really, I don't know, that might be out of my comfort zone a little bit, although I think it would be fantastic.
Maybe I'll co-host that episode with you on your channel and we can make that happen, because I've compared Sales Samurai and E-Rank because I have both, and the results are pretty similar, like very very similar. So whatever technology they're using in the background, I think at least those two are interchangeable. And this isn't scientific or anything, so I mean, hopefully nobody will hold me to that, but from my comparison, having access to both, I think they're pretty similar. I don't have access to Marmalade, so I haven't done a comparison.
Yeah, and again, it's like I don't want to be biased because I know there's some that I use a lot more, but I think that's just because that's what I grew up on, so to speak. It's like I haven't dived into some of the other ones as deeper because I've been using these other ones. So I don't know. It's just like I said, all of those keyword tools are, it's interesting. There's quite a few out there now. So
and obviously, it would make it, whatever you're using works for you. So
yeah. As long as you've got something going, something is definitely better than nothing. So
yes. Okay. Advice. I always like to ask whoever I'm talking to give advice to someone who's listening, and earlier you gave some what I thought was really good advice for someone who's in the beginning and still trying to get their feet wet. What would you say to that person who's listening, who is very well established on Etsy, is doing well, and maybe it's just kind of coasting right now? What advice would you tell that person? They're not struggling for sales, they're not struggling for income, but they're kind of coasting. What would you say to that particular person?
And again, I'm going to speak to myself a little bit. I am starting to believe a little more and more. I don't have enough concrete examples. So, what I'm trying to say right now is I think you have to be willing. It's the concept of investing in yourself. So I listened for years and years and years, so much free stuff, YouTube videos, podcasts, and I love education, but I am starting to notice a shift when I start kind of like putting my money where my mouth is, for lack of better words. Like when you have, those who pay attention, that concept. And like this company that I am working with right now, I like choked on how much they ask for, but as I'm doing it. And it's kind of almost more like, I feel like a coaching kind of thing. Like I'm meeting with them like every week on Zoom. They're going over stuff. They're putting this together. And it's like, I'm really starting to see a difference, and I'm starting to be like, okay, it's like what people are saying, like what's got me here is not going to get me to that next level. I'm at this 6-figure mark, and I'm trying to get to the 7-figure, kind of like that concept, it's like you have to do things differently. And sometimes I just know, like, if when I paid like all this money, you better bet I'm at every single meeting, I'm taking notes, I'm doing the things, and so I feel like for myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, for so long I was like, you don't need to pay, you just get it. And I'm like, oh no, I really do think like it's better, like it's better this way, So again, I'm going through this process. I will definitely have to do like a part 2 later on, and I'll be like, yes, pay, do the things. Like I'm thinking about, like, I've never done like a mastermind. Have you heard of those before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, I would love to do, like, there's this one that I kind of have my eye on that I think is like really expensive, but it's all sellers kind of like in a similar like range of sales and stuff that I'm doing, kind of doing similar type things. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money, but I think it might be like really, really beneficial to just, again, get to those next levels, So I don't know. That's, I guess, probably what I'll leave you with for now. We'll see. I'm starting to become more and more of a believer of, if I pay, if I invest in myself, if I trust this investment, it's gonna work out.
Yeah. And I agree. I get where you're coming from. They're availing yourself of what's free is good to a point, and very helpful and necessary in some situations. But then there are times where there are just some things that you just get a higher quality and more value if you invest in certain things. So yes, I agree with you, and I do want to follow up so we can find out how that turned out for you.
Yes, for sure.
Following through. Do you have an Etsy shop shout out?
Oh, I want to shout out like so many people, but now I'm like, oh shoot, I have to remember, like, I wish I could remember all the people I've coached with, like, like there's so many cool shops. The one I'm just gonna do this one. No, I'm not gonna do it because I can't think of her name, but there's a girl that's in the Etsy U program with me, and you go to the Etsy U trainings, and she has, what's her name? It's like it's like Giovanna or something. It's like a J name. Now I'm just like embarrassing myself, but
and I'm trying to quickly find her. But keep going. Keep describing what she does, and maybe I'll figure out.
She's gonna have. I'm pretty sure she has some trainings on there in the event seller section. So I want to shout her out because
Kat, is she in the US or is she international?
I want to say, I think she's international. I know she has a YouTube channel too. She has kind of like an accent a little bit. And her name, it's like it starts with like a G, but it's like pronounced with a J. Okay. Anyways, people listening on the podcast. Okay, so she made this video, like the first time I did my YouTube live for the Etsy U program, like that was so stressful to me to try to figure out. And she made a YouTube video. She didn't post it on her channel or anything. She just made it for all the other Etsy U kind of like members that they could watch to learn how to do it. And I just appreciated that so much. And so I'm like, I'm going to shout her out the next time. And now I'm failing at it miserably because I can't remember her shop name or her name.
That's okay. So let's do this. When you figure it out, email me or message me, and then I will put a link to her shop so others can go and look for her. And that's, we'll just get everyone over to the show notes for this episode to see who this mystery person is.
That's awesome. She's awesome though. Yep, we'll put her information. Go check her out. Follow her YouTube channel. Seems pretty cool too. So
okay. And Kat, if anyone wants to follow up with you or connect with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me, because I again don't do social media a lot, but I am right now very active in my YouTube channel. So I am consistently checking my YouTube comments. So if you want to, I would love
Mm.
if you just want to say you watch this show, you got some, information out of it, introduce yourself if you want to connect, drop me a comment there. I'm trying to think like the best way. Yeah, that's probably going to be the best way to get a hold of me. I love if there's things that people want to know more about. Like I always, that's where I get all my video ideas from, or
Yeah.
people in the comments like saying, "Hey, what about this? What do you think of this?"
Yeah. Okay, I like that. And again, Kat's YouTube channel is Kat Hutchings. I will have a direct link to her YouTube channel in the show notes for this episode. So when you come to check out, yes?
Yes, I'm so sorry, Ijama. I thought of another way. I'm like, how can people get I have a website now. If you go to cathutchings.com, that's where I do like my Etsy booking coaching stuff too. But there's a place where it says contact me and you can shoot me a message that way.
Kat, how could you forget that?
I know, because I'm silly like that. It's not, again, this coaching stuff, I haven't been doing it for too long. So,
yeah. Okay, so I will have all of Kat's links, her Etsy shops. Again, that's Spotlight Jewelry and Moonlight Supplies, as well as her YouTube channel, Kat Hutchings, and her website, cathutchings.com, where, of course, you can sign up for coaching with Kat. And she's made over $1 million. What is there not that you can learn from her?
I love, and the coachings are so fun. Like Ijama, the only way I can do them right now is when you like book a session, you get to schedule a time and we do it on Zoom, and I share my screen with you and we look at your shop and we go through it together. And it's super fun. I will say, I just want to put out there, like, one of the best, because people are like, is this right for me? It's again, investing that can be scary, especially as like an Etsy seller. So I would say the coaching, that one-on-one coaching, works best for people who have the availability to list a lot of items. That's who I work best with, because that's my strategy, is listing new items and looking at the SEO and knowing what type of items to list within your industry. So that's kind of like one of the things. Another thing that works best with the people I coach is just kind of being available and open to suggestions of possibly like doing some pivots, or branching out, or some different things. Because there's honestly, like, sometimes, like, if you come to me and you're like, this is what I sell and this is only what I sell, I'll do some research really quick and I can say, like, okay, like, you've got to expand because there is not enough people looking for this item right now.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you, because it helps to know who your ideal target is, like who you can.
Yes, I am
best
learning
help.
that. That's what I'm like. I need to get this information out there, because I'm like, these are the people I work best with. I really work well with teaching people how to find the products that people are looking for, that not as many sellers are selling. And again, just going through those listings, being like, let's do this, let's try this, add this,
And to be even more specific, are these only handmade sellers? Because some people who sell supplies or vintage can also have large inventories.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, and this, even I have coached quite a few print on demand sellers and digital sellers, because a lot of those same concepts transfer over. I haven't done any vintage. I imagine vintage would be the same, but honestly, like, if you have any questions, like, I am very honest, I don't ever want to work with someone who it's not going to fully benefit. And I'll just say, like, hey, this is the advice I would give you just offhand. Is that something you think you could do or not? And just see if it's a good fit. So I feel like vintage I really thrive in handmade products, just because that's what I've been doing for so long and so used to. But I definitely think it can be open. And if you have questions, please feel free. You can just send me a message at that cathutchings.com. Contact me.
Okay. All right. I like that. Kat, thank you so much for doing part 1 of of this conversation. Thank you so much for being my guest, for just taking all this time out of your day to have just this really nice, full conversation. I know it's going to be helpful to somebody out there who is listening, just hearing how you've been able to accomplish what you have done. And, I know there are some naysayers about Etsy and, it being a viable source of income for some.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy to be able to, spotlight what you're doing and just help confirm for anyone who is doubtful that it can be done. You can make a living selling on Etsy. It's not easy. It's, and it doesn't happen overnight. You've been on the platform for over a decade. But $1 million later, here you are.
And Ijama, I feel like I don't know, I feel like I've known you for years, as silly as that sounds. This has been an absolute treat. I will always remember, like, this was my first podcast I ever went on. Thank you. Thank your audience for tolerating my long-windedness and my forever long answers, and for sticking around. Like, all Etsy sellers out there everywhere, you guys are the best. So hopefully we'll get to connect at different points, and hopefully I'll get to be back on here, and who knows, maybe I'll get my podcast up and running and get you on there, Ijama.
Oh, you will both. You'll have it up and running and I'll be your guest.
Deal. Let's do it.
Thanks, Kat. And I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you have enjoyed this conversation and you would like to hear more like this, I have 2 asks of you. One, if you would like to be my guest on the podcast, or you have any recommendations for future guests, please go to convome.com and click on the Be My Guest tab and let me know, and you will hear back from me after that. Also, if you would like to hear more conversations like this on the podcast, I would invite you to become a podcast supporter. If you go to convome.com/support, you can buy me a coffee or 2. That translates into support that goes back into just everything it takes to run the podcast. You can also become a monthly supporter for some additional perks. Once again, I thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, and I will be back with another one next week.